The concept behind reality television is where you get a whole bunch of contestants, usually fans of the show, and you put them in a house and you do competitions and eliminate players. It is a simple format, but there's one aspect of these houses that they're put in that is meant to break people. And I want to watch this video that popped up on my recommended called How Reality TV Houses Are Built to Break People. Now, I know for a fact that reality TV does bring some of the best moments that television has to offer. Let me know one of your favorite reality television moments down in the comment section below. Like this video, subscribe, and let's get right into it.
On January 11th, 1973, over 10 million people tuned in to watch footage recorded from 35 Wooddale Lane. The advertisement for the show, An American Family, featured only the cameraman pointed at film stock of the house.
The family was filmed as they went about their daily routine.
Over the course of 12 episodes, the family of 5 that lived in the home completely fell apart, and the drama of their downfall made for exceptionally riveting television.
What? I've never heard about The American Family before. I know Modern Family's original name was supposed to be something along the same lines. Imagine somebody just shows up with a camera and then your house and your family and your marriage just crumble. Mind you, on the PBS channel, by the way.
Television.
You know there's a problem.
What's your problem?
And I'd like to have you move out. It's just like that.
Yet none of the events of the show, the infidelity, the divorce, none of it was scripted. The Loud family was instructed to
That's
live their
so
lives
funny.
as if there was no camera present.
I mean, how do you
They were
not?
to do nothing differently than they would ordinarily.
Right. So he would just, or maybe she, I don't know who was cheating on who, but I like how they're just like, yeah, I'd probably do this anyways if there were no camera. I feel like if that were the case, if you have any glimpse of like a camera, this being broadcasted nationally, especially on PBS, like that's the public broadcasting service, you got to fall in line, you know? Like if you're getting paid $10 million and you ask me to do something, I would do it. That almost equates to the embarrassment that I'd get on national television.
So, on the surface, nothing about the
That's
family or
crazy.
the house was changed for the show. Yet, the house becomes a really critical part of the show's plot. It provides the unrealistic expectations that the family's trying to live up to, especially the matriarch, Pat Loud, who's preoccupied with keeping it orderly. Its oppressiveness prompts the eldest son, Lance, to flee for New
she
York.
cooking that
It also
bacon.
establishes certain production limitations for the show, like the microphones that had to be located in the chandelier above the dining room table, which confined all the important conversations to happen underneath it. If someone didn't want to be filmed, like when Pat told Bill that she wanted a divorce, she just went into a room and closed the door. But if family members or anyone visiting the house were moving about, the production crew would be there to capture it.
Maybe glad that there's some regulation on that. Like imagine you're about to have like Thanksgiving and Christmas. Like I know like shows like the Kardashians have like stuff like that, but I feel like that's an expectation. This is like the first reality TV show. And so it's so funny. Like if you invite family over and they're like, who's the guy in the corner with the camera? Imagine explaining that to them.
But the crew was supposed to minimize any disruptions to the natural
Especially with
course of
big
the family's
cameras,
life.
too.
Just observe and record, like a fly on the wall.
Literally.
Technological
Literally.
limitations at the time, though, it meant that equipment was kind of scattered everywhere. The crew themselves became a part of the environment of the home, like good friends to the family.
Imagine trying to talk from the kitchen to the dining room. There's a whole camera crew in the middle of you two.
Or even family members themselves. So the house was changed for the show. But the next question becomes then, is that what led to the family's demise? I mean, it just so happens to coincide with the filming of the show. And in a sense, every reality TV show is like a
Survivor.
social, psychological experiment.
Right.
39 days, 20 people, 1
Survivor. Oh.
Today's highly produced, even scripted reality shows involve wild scenarios that they just can't be staged in normal,
Brother, baby.
unaltered houses anymore.
It's a house like no other, where 94 cameras follow your every move, and
Shout out Julie
113
Chen, man.
microphones capture your every word.
These need specially built structures to carry out the self-imposed limitations for setups like groups of strangers that can't leave, or living together and competing while never meeting, or dating without ever seeing one another. The architecture that
Oh, what is that show? I'm intrigued on what that dating show is without meeting the person. That sounds like a very, very cool concept. If you know that concept, leave it in the comments section below, like the show that is. I want to watch it. I want to make some videos on it. That sounds like a really cool concept.
enables these, they can be downright diabolical if you just analyze them on their face value as a place where people might live. So let's do that.
And they're all
Let's look
doing
at
it
the
for money,
domestic spaces of a few of these reality shows. We can start with the houses from the show Big Brother.
Yeah, Big Brother
They look
being the
normal-ish
biggest. Yeah.
on screen, but their floor plans reveal the careful engineering and manipulation and the control of the participants that live here for weeks on end. In any other context, these could be read as
Not the have-not
torture
room.
chambers. The torture began for a group of 16 folks in August of 2023 when season 25 kicked off and they entered the house for the very first time. For the next 100 days, they lived in a specially built studio on CBS's Studio 18 lot in Studio City. We follow them as they exit the main staging area into the public zone of their new accommodations. The kitchen and dining are on the left, with the living room over on the right.
Honestly, I've loved the Big Brother houses. Like, they've never ceased to amaze me. I really wish it were a house, though. Like, there's a part of me that wishes that was like a physical house. It's not, and I understand why.
These spaces are almost completely open, with no corners. Literally, some of them are chamfered. Nor are there any areas to be able to get away from any of the other contestants. This layout forces interaction, and that stokes any latent potential for conflict by denying anyone privacy. Even the angles of the walls and the
Denied
wood wall at
privacy,
the
I love
entrance,
it.
it kind of forces you to pick a side and then thrusts you into view of the cameras, which we see in the second episode when Izzy confronts Jared awkwardly right next to the rest of the group.
Yes. Let me tell you, I don't want you going home.
The decor even reinforces this, with discordant elements being thrust together, divided by just a lightning bolt. This to me feels like the constant goal of the entire design, reinforcing division, encapsulation, and disruption, both physically and psychologically. The destabilizing interior furnishing and design, it continues into the bedroom, where everything is flipped upside down, which I don't think could be any more on the nose.
Ow.
But then there's just the fact that there's a huge disparity between the have-not and the head of household bedrooms. The have-not's room is full of insults and foul food item-shaped sleeping surfaces that are designed to wear on your mental health over time. Sleeping in the head of household room, on the other hand, is the coveted prize for each week's competition. It's a luxurious retreat where occupants are treated to privacy and comfort and absolute powers of surveillance
It's like a
over the other
first-class
spaces
room.
of the house. What this does is it creates a huge disparity between the individuals of the show, with a select few gaining access to greater levels of comfort and information than the rest of the people. This creates imbalances in power and unequal levels of control that people feel that they have over their individual.
By the way, fun fact, Jag, this guy right here, he actually lives in Washington. There's a friend of mine that actually is friends with him. So that's like a really cool fun fact. Like, he's from Washington. Also, there's another Jared on the show, which is really cool. I like this map, though. I like that. This is like a nice little, yeah, I like that.
Environments. Those at the bottom grow paranoid, knowing that they're being watched and observed. And this is heightened by the huge swings between the absolutely public gathering faces, accompanied by spaces like the diary room, which are absolutely private. It's even acoustically isolated from the other spaces and separated by an airlock. It's where individuals dish their feelings about the other contestants on the show. The room's disconnection from the other spaces then leads to paranoia in others that might be
BB
thinking
tears,
about what's
imagine that
happening
being the
inside. What are they
hashtag.
saying about me? But all of this entire plan is surrounded on all sides, even in between all the spaces, by the production crew and cameras. The people living here, called house guests, have no access to this space. Yet you can feel it as a constant presence of this mysterious zone that you don't know anything about behind every mirror and behind every wall where there should be another room or another space. You never know if someone's in there. So you have to assume that there always is someone there. That's almost literally the stuff
those
of
window
nightmares
mirror
and feelings of
look is
oppressive
weird.
control
Yeah.
from the space around you. Absolute
You feel
containment
like there would be a
coupled with
room.
absolute exposure, luxury coupled with discomfort, access to knowledge coupled with restricting information. That is a recipe for undermining the emotional stability of your occupants. Architects that want to do this to people have been taking notes on this for years.
They got Big Brother does it best. I don't know if you believe me or not, but Big Brother does it the best when it comes to like house guests, like from day one to the end of it, of just it's not physical. It's like this, like they said, like emotional disruption of stability. I love
Big
it though.
Brother is
I love
designed
it
to
for Big
create
Brother.
unstable,
You know?
multivalent alliances while
Zach-
sowing the seeds of division.
Zach is a
The
king,
show
man.
Love is Blind brings people together with the intention of them pairing off in matrimony. And while that sounds more benevolent, the design of their spaces for interaction is no less manipulative and emotional.
think I found the show, by the way.
Destructive than Big Brother. The most iconic spaces of the show are called the pods. These are small, soundproof rooms where the participants sit on these plush couches and then they talk to their potential
I hate
partners
couches that you can barely
through a
sit
wall.
on. Get rid of these throw
pods are the
pillows.
heart of the
Get
show.
rid of them.
The
Throw 'em.
places where connections are made between people and where the show's central premise takes place. Falling in love, sight unseen.
I'm the king of first impressions.
You've made a lasting impression.
This is like so
They're talking
awkward.
to each other?
The pods create a unique environment of isolated intimacy. Each one is a self-contained unit separated from the others by thick walls. Participants can't see each other. They can only hear each other's voices. The lack of visual cues forces them to focus entirely on the conversation, to be able to listen more carefully and to just express themselves more openly than they would otherwise. But this isolation away from other people also heightens the emotional stakes of the encounter. The sterile, minimalist design of the pods, octagonal, with soft lighting and a simple seating arrangement, it removes any distractions. And then there it is again, no corners for somewhere to hide.
Weird.
Participants are pushed to confront their deepest insecurities while feeling safe, indulging in their intense emotional experiences. The blank wall that people are actually talking to, it strips away the...
So what did you do on the show? Well, I talked to a wall.
Usual social crutches of body language and facial expressions that we'd be gathering visually. But it's also like a psychological mirror that reflects back to you your own emotions and projections. This all leads to actually having a heightened sense of connection with the other person, but it also creates space for misunderstandings and miscommunications. Participants actually fill in the gaps of this information that they're not gathering with their own assumptions and biases, which are coming from them. So this reflection of themselves, it makes them fall in love with themselves a little bit.
I have done a decent job
Get rid of the throw pillows, girl.
expressing my
It's like
feelings
Victoria
about
Justice.
After each emotionally charged session inside of the pods, participants return to a shared living space where they regroup with the other people on the show. This mirrors the same intimacy paradox as Big
So it seems like the guys are on one side and the girls are on another, I'd assume?
Brother, because as soon as they leave
kind of the
this
whole
cocoon
point.
of privacy, they're thrust back into a
women's
social
course, that
setting
makes
that demands a completely different kind of interaction. An interaction that's more about social alignment and strategy.
Okay, this is cool.
And here, the space is conducive to sharing and comparing
That's a lot of
experiences.
contestants,
It's
my
like
gosh.
the ultimate rec room. It's filled with disarming distractions, activities, and lots of alcohol. The room makes people feel insecure, though, by creating multiple zones within the larger space. This leaves certain people out of certain activities, and it also leaves their back exposed to the group. The group time might build.
I find this so funny because the whole concept is like love, right? And just like any show about like relationships, I'd assume that like you're talking to like multiple people, like The Bachelor, like The Bachelorette, both of those shows, like there's a single person and they're all coupled up with like 30 other people. So a show like this, I'm assuming like Jessica, who I said looks like Victoria Justice, I only know that because of her notebook, is talking to like another person other than Jimmy. And Jimmy's probably also talking to somebody else. Maybe some are a little bit more just like that, hey, like I want to go after you. And if that could be disastrous because then you're going back and be like, oh my God, I love Jimmy. What do you mean? I love Jimmy.
Camaraderie and opportunities
That's
for
so funny.
mutual support between the people, but it also leads to individuals that might question the legitimacy of the experiences that they had while they were alone over inside the pods.
Is this because of something she told you or something that you heard? Like, is this factual
Jessica might be
information?
on one.
Once pairing off, though, from this closed-off world, the couple is put to the test from the reveal to finally the wedding. The
they
reveal
get
it
married
takes
that
place
quick?
in this comically
What the
long
hell?
distance apart from one another, and the space requires traversing. This allows the cameras to capture every
You can
reaction
tell they're gonna
as
be
new
set for
information
life. They're
comes into
good.
focus
They
for
are
both
good.
the cameras and the reveal.
They are good.
On the other hand,
They're getting
the wedding
married like 8
thrusts the
times
relationship
just to celebrate
into
it.
public scrutiny. So Big Brother is like this cocoon away from the world.
Oh, wait. So is this show, do they, and this is just me maybe speaking out loud, But do they like go to the wedding and like do all this hoopla, goobity goop? Is it where like one person says I do like they want to and then the other person could not say it or say it? Oh, that's brutal.
And Love is Blind is like a cocoon away from the world, but then
I mean,
slowly
she's storming
introduces
out.
people
She's
back
done.
into
She
the
can't even
public
open the door.
life.
It's a push door and she's
So
pulling
there's a
it.
kind of continuum here. On the other side of the continuum is Netflix's other hit reality show called The Circle, where public
gotta watch
scrutiny
that
is
show.
the
I gotta watch
primary
Love is
ingredient
Blind.
of the social experiment all along. And unlike Love is Blind's specially built isolation chambers, The Circle is filmed in an actual apartment building. 12
okay.
contestants each have
With a
their own
giant
apartment.
circle.
Oh my God, look at the tchotchkes. Look at the tchotchkes.
And while they're decorated based on the individual personalities of the inhabitants, those
interesting.
apartment layouts, they're all identical. All that's possible because The Circle doesn't rely on a diabolical floor plan to be able to coax drama and discord. Instead, they have technology that does that for them. In fact, it's the advanced technology of small, remotely controlled cameras that we have today that makes it even possible for the show to take place in this
ZTRs.
unmodified apartment. Contestants, they all live alone in these apartments, and just like the other shows,
Walking
they're
into
not
the
allowed to
bathroom and
leave.
there's just a
Their
camera
physical
pointed at your
isolation, though,
face.
is mirrored by complete immersion into a social media platform that's built especially for the show.
Oh,
It's how contestants interact with one another. It's where they devise
Musical
strategies
sister.
and manipulate each other. This, of course, is fully public and exposed.
Wow.
So deciphering veiled innuendos is scrutinized to death by fellow competitors and millions watching at home.
An espresso martini? I feel like people who drink espresso martinis are like middle-aged women.
Ooh, I like the concept of this because it's giving like that social media vibe where like, yeah, like you're not confronted by these people, but you can kind of say whatever you want. But then when you say it as wholeheartedly as you might feel like it is, some people are going to criticize you for like vocalizing your opinion, especially like a espresso martini, you know, or like, hey, Circle Sister, like, oh, like somebody rolls their eyes. I could see a lot of like internal conflict of just like, I'm going to say this to myself, but it's not going to you right away. Then you see the recording.
Those are actually good. I have had those.
So like Big Brother and Love is Blind, there's a huge rift between spaces of deep privacy and isolation that's almost violently juxtaposed with spaces of unfettered exposure out in the world. All the while, the cameras in The Circle, they're barely noticeable. You can live your life without a care. And the social media aspect, it's not really that different from what everyone just does already. I think this makes it just that much more tragic in its premise. Even though it's taken to the extreme, it's barely any different than the strange reality that we live in today.
That makes sense.
Big
Maybe you
Brother
guys are
creates
leaving
its own
comments.
encapsulated world
You know?
and boosts people from it. Love is Blind slowly releases back everyone into it. And The Circle, it's not really isolated at all. Netflix did put a giant neon circle on the outside of the building that it's filmed in, branding it for exterior camera shots and anybody that just happens to be nearby. But I noticed that in larger context establishing shots, they draw from areas around me here in Chicago and a bit from Milwaukee. But the original building, it's been in England ever since the show began, and it only moved to Atlanta, Georgia for the last couple of seasons.
That's funny.
Either way, there's this
I haven't heard
strange
about the
lack
show
of
yet.
specificity. That means it's like everywhere and nowhere at the same time. Everyone is living comfortably in a space that reflects
she
their
brought
personal
a
interests,
dog.
physically
Oh my
isolated
goodness,
while
this is giving,
emotionally
like,
exposed
London Tipton,
in a building that
Paris
features
Hilton
zero
vibes.
sense of
Oh,
place
man.
or local
Oh, man.
connection. That all sounds like a nightmare that is way too close to reality. When An American Family first aired in 1973, documentaries at the time that were popular were mostly focused on large world events and historically significant people. But that contrasted with scripted television at the time, which shifted inward to the home and focused on things like family dynamics. The top two in the ratings were All in the Family and The Waltons. These kinds of shows connected with the anxiety that Americans were feeling at the time, with the kinds of changes that they were feeling in their home life.
stressed for me.
Even today, 50 years
if you
after
will.
that reality TV show experiment, the collision of those genres, documentaries focused on suburban families, it still resonates with audiences around the globe. We're watching these non-actors in their homes having intense encounters between each other, while we too were sitting in our homes. In this scenario, the TV screen, it's kind of like a mirror. It's not so much just a portal into some unrelated fictional fantasy world. I think it's
Well, the thing about it is that it speaks volumes to me is like, I used to watch like Modern Family. I used to watch The Middle. I'd watch a lot of these shows that were like families, and they're obviously fictional families because they're TV shows, but there are like families that are like real. Like I hate to say, like 18 and Counting. Obviously you even had like Dance Moms, which really isn't like so much of like their family living, but it's like the environment that they're in. So it is interesting to see that we've gone from like this purely factual like state of reality TV shows to then going into fictional but also semi-real family reality TV shows, which is kind of cool. I don't know. That's just kind of cool to me.
No coincidence then that the cameras in Big Brother, they're disguised behind mirrors too. Of course, we all know that the level of reality TV is totally dubious. But I think like Fargo's insistence that it's based on true events, or the willful suspension of reality that we have in things like professional wrestling.
Yeah, come on.
I think reality TV is immersive in a unique way like those. And the home is an important piece of that equation. The houses of reality TV play out some of the most nightmarish spaces imaginable, while others on the surface seem like blissful, aspirational rewards of the suburban dream. And sometimes they're both at the same time. Clearly, the architecture and design of reality TV shows aren't just backdrops. They're powerful tools for shaping behavior overall, influencing emotions, and orchestrating all sorts of interactions. It's fascinating how spaces can manipulate outcomes and reveal deeper truths about human nature. If there's a broader takeaway
Imagine
in this, though,
you go
I think
into
it's
like
that
Big Brother and
environments
talk
that we
to
inhabit
no one.
daily wield the
You
exact
just
same
avoid
kind of
any
influence.
conflict
To better
at all
understand
costs.
underlying principles like this, I find myself constantly turning to Brilliant.
Right. Sorry, this is the portion of the video that is all about. It's the sponsored portion. If you want to check out more of Stuart Hicks' videos, I found this one to be very enlightening about reality TV shows. I just like popped up my recommended and I saw it. I was like, wow, that seems really, really cool. Like an in-depth guide to reality TV shows. Like I had no idea about the reality TV shows back then. After this, I'm going to go ask my parents what they watched as a kid. Make sure to watch the next video up on the screen right now. I hope you guys enjoyed this one. Subscribe